Hey folks, this is Jesse Cope, back with another episode of the American Soul Podcast. Hope y'all are doing well, wherever y'all are, whatever part of the day it is for y'all. Appreciate y'all giving me a little bit of your time, joining me here, and for those of y'all that continue to share the podcast, I am ever grateful and humbled by it. I'm going to take a little walk through the pasture today, maybe check on some fence work, and you can hear the guineas in the background and Mr. Tom somewhere. No puppy dogs as of yet. No girls, no wifey. They're actually playing a little volleyball right now, so just us. Moon's up today, not a cloud in the sky. Gorgeous day. Actually, spring has really started to kind of show its face here, and went into one of the local nurseries to get some plants for the garden and a couple other things. I was walking out, and a gentleman looked at me and said, "You look like you've got yourself a lot of work there." It's always the downside, right? You go in and you get this stuff, and then what you're really buying yourself, you're paying somebody else to give yourself a lot of work when you think about it, at any rate. All right, so maybe you can hear them in the background. We are going to talk, we're going to get back to our foundations, both as we're going to get back to the foundations of our country and the foundations of this podcast, because muscle memory, right? The overwhelming goal of this podcast, personally, just for me, is to hopefully draw people to God and Jesus Christ. And then second, for our nation as a whole, to draw us back to God and Jesus Christ. And the reason I differentiate those things is because, as I say often, folks, you do not have to be a Christian in order to be an American. Our founders strongly believed in the right of each individual man to decide for themselves their relationship with God. But they also, and this is the part that we've forgotten, we've twisted the first part today to mean what it didn't. And we're going to talk about that a little bit today. And then the second part, modern culture has completely, the left has completely tried to silence that part, which is, if we don't have a people that follow the teachings of Christ, even if you don't accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, America, our republic, simply, it can't work. I think that's probably what quite a few people want. But regardless of whether they want it or not, the truth of the matter is that our government, our Constitution, as President Adams said, that I quote so often here, without a moral and religious people, and he was talking about Christianity, we're going to hit on that a little bit today, not Islam or atheism or just general deism. Without a people that follow the teachings of Christ, this country does not work, period. And it's not, and that's why we see it today. All these problems we've got external, which we could do multiple podcasts on, weeks worth, months worth probably, and maybe we'll talk about it some, but China, Russia, Ukraine, Iran, Muslim terrorism, pick whatever external threat you want. And as Lincoln noted, those aren't the problems. It's the internal. That's what's destroying us. If we were strong internally, we might have problems. It might be really hard, like it was in World War II. And at other points throughout our history, it might be really difficult. It's not to say that it would be easy, but we could deal with it. When we're weak internally, it's like the difference between trying to fight off. Ooh, this just came to me. Some of y'all may disagree with this, I don't know, but the analogy I think is pretty honest. When you have AIDS, right? The thing that makes AIDS, or HIV, I should say, HIV so problematic is that it attacks the very system that's supposed to defend your body against outside attack. Country's the same way. If we don't have the moral principles and teachings of Jesus Christ at the heart of our country, it makes us susceptible to outside attack. So we're going to kind of go back here. I'm going to start with one that we've done multiple times recently, but it's so valid and so misunderstood today that we're going to go through it again. Alabama courts, 1983. And again, folks, I've kind of gotten away from this source the last couple of podcasts and used others, which is fine. And you can find this stuff in a lot of different locations out there. But one resource that I use over and over again is America's God and Country Encyclopedia of Quotations. Cannot recommend it enough. And this particular thing is coming from it. Alabama courts, 1983. In the case of Jaffrey, I think, versus Board of School of Commissioners of Mobile County, Judge Brevard Hand quoted from the 19th century United States Supreme Court Justice Joseph Story, who we've talked about on this podcast before, who succinctly clarified the original meaning of the First Amendment. The real objective of the First Amendment was not to countenance, much less to advance Mohammedanism or Judaism or infidelity by prostrating Christianity, but to exclude all rivalry among Christian sects denominations and to prevent any national ecclesiastical patronage of the national government. Huge point. This is what the left tries to ignore and brush under the rug. The First Amendment was not created to equalize all religions. We've been a Christian nation since the beginning. We're going to show this in a couple other steps here today. The point of the First Amendment was to keep the different denominations of Christianity from being favored by the government and having an unfair advantage, as you saw with the Church of England and Britain. Okay? That's the whole point. In America, Islam, not on the same level as Christianity. Atheism, not on the same level as Christianity. Buddhism, Hinduism, deism, not on the same level as Christianity. Because, again, folks, back to the very beginning, our republic, our constitution and government doesn't work for people that don't follow the teachings of Christ. It's that simple. So this idea that the First Amendment meant that we had to treat all religions equally is nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Our government was not founded on Islam. It was not founded on atheism. It was not founded on general deism. It was founded on God, the Bible, the teachings of Jesus Christ. This is a Supreme Court case from Alabama, quoting a Supreme Court case from the 19th century, Justice Story. Historically, go back to, I talk about this, I've talked about it off and on. I think I said this last time too. I need to go back and redo a podcast on this. Children's library book, a series of books produced for children back at the turn of the 19th into 20th century, talked about this. The person that doesn't acknowledge that this is a Christian republic, a Christian nation, is the one that's out of step with history. The person that does acknowledge that is the one that is in step with history, with facts. All right, so we're going to jump to Samuel Chase, appointed a justice on the United States Supreme Court by George Washington, signer of the Declaration of Independence, later served as the Chief Justice of the state of Maryland. The guy was around when the country was founded, might know a little bit more than a lot of the people today that pretend to know what was going on, either because of ignorance or they've got their own malevolent agenda. In the case of Runkle versus Weinmiller, 1799, Justice Chase gave the court's opinion. Religion is of a general and public concern, and on its support demand, in great measure, the peace and good order of government, the safety and happiness of the people. By our form of government, the Christian religion is the established religion. and all sects and denominations of Christians are placed upon the same equal footing and are equally entitled to protection in their religious liberty. What is he saying here? This is not a country where we can put Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, atheism, deism on the same footing with Christianity, because our country will not work without the principles of Jesus Christ at its core. This is not somebody on MSNBC today. This is not The View. This is not ABC. This is not CNN. This is not some leftist politician. This is not somebody from California, New York, or wherever else you want to talk about. This is somebody who was an actual signer of the Declaration that was appointed to the United States Supreme Court by George Washington. This is somebody that was there, and he's saying that that the Christian religion is the established religion based on our form of government. Because our form of government will only work, folks, with Christianity at the core. Not see what he's saying. It's not just our private lives, folks. It's our public life. Have to have that at the core of our public life. We could talk about this some more. We'll have to come back to it. I'm going to skip to another court case that he was part of in 1799. And I want to pull in a couple things here, folks. So I'm going to kind of just jump to this quote from it. Maryland, I, Samuel Chase, Chief Judge of the State of Maryland, do hereby certify all whom it may concern that personally appeared before me Thomas McCreary, and he did repeat and subscribe a declaration of his belief in the Christian religion and take an oath required by the Act of Assembly of this state entitled An Act for Naturalization. This was a court case talking about whether a naturalized citizen could leave his estate to a relative living outside the country, right? But the thing here, the reason I wanted to, and I'm going to tie this in with a couple others, the reason I wanted to talk about it is because Chase is saying here, as a chief judge in the state of Maryland, right, that part of this oath, this gentleman said, I believe in the Christian religion. I believe in Jesus Christ, the teachings of Christ, however you want to phrase that today. That was part of his support in this case, was that this gentleman said that. This is a public court case. This isn't a private life, and this was relevant. All right, so I'm going to find my spot here. I'm going to try and get to Calvin Coolidge at the very end. But what I want to go to real quick to tie in with this court case with Chase is the Constitution of the State of Massachusetts, 1780. And I'm going to pull out two sections here. The governor shall be chosen annually, and no person shall be eligible to this office unless at the time of his election he shall declare himself to be of the Christian religion. So this is 1780. So this is after our country, right at the very beginning, right? When we're getting into all these different Constitution, Declaration of Independence, this is that time frame, folks. Again, huge difference between people that were actually there, documents from that actual time frame, and what you hear today from the left. Because it's dishonest, it's not true. Whether it's out of ignorance because they don't know history, or whether it's out of malevolence, we can talk about that, and we do sometimes. The point is, it's wrong. Right here, state of Maryland, you can't be governor if you don't follow the teachings of Christ. And this one goes a step further. This isn't even just saying that you're going to follow the teachings of Christ. This is saying that you personally believe in Jesus Christ as the Son of God, which goes along with John Jay. Again, pull this in from a different podcast that we've talked about often, who was our first Supreme Court Chief Justice, said that it is not only our duty as American citizens, but our privilege, or maybe I said that backwards, it's not only our privilege, but our duty to prefer Christians as our leaders. Folks, these people, they didn't hem and haw around this. They specifically said that for America to function, we had to choose people that followed Jesus Christ. And when we're talking about leaders, they're even more emphatic. They're saying not only do we have to choose people that follow Jesus Christ, we have to choose people that accept him as their Lord and Savior. Does that mean they're perfect? Good Lord, no, folks. Nobody is. Again, I'm not. I'm going to make some mistakes here. I already have, I'm sure. And when y'all call me on it, I'll go back and acknowledge those when I see it. The point is not perfection, because there's only one man that was. The point is, if we're going to have a discussion about how to make our country stronger, we've got to be honest in how it was founded, and we have not been for decades. Ever since those horrific Supreme Court decisions back in the 1940s all the way up through the 80s and 90s about separation of church and state, which is a complete lie, was never intended by Jefferson to mean what the left twisted it to mean today. It's not in our Constitution. It's not in our Declaration. It was in a private letter assuring the exact opposite of what it's been used to do. Second little excerpt, chapter 6. Always have to pause on my Roman numerals. Article 1, again, Constitution of the State of Massachusetts. All persons, not some, not a few, all persons elected to state office or to the legislature must make and subscribe the following declaration. I, whatever your name is, do declare that I believe the Christian religion and have firm persuasion of its truth. So any state office holder had to say, not only do I follow the teachings of Christ, but I believe in the truth of the Christian religion, of Jesus Christ as the Lord and Savior, Son of God. Not Islam, not Buddhism, not Hinduism, not atheism, not this general deism, which is another lie that the left has pushed. If I'm going to hold state office, I am going to declare, with a little bit of honor and integrity, hopefully, folks, that I believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God and that I follow him as my Lord and Savior. And I believe that that is the truth. All right. So how do we tie this all together now? I'm going to read a quote from Coolidge, President Coolidge. I've read it before. The foundations of our society and our government rest so much on the teaching of the Bible that it would be difficult to support them if faith in these teachings would cease to be practically universal in our country. Folks, we can't force people to have faith in Jesus Christ, and we can't force people not to. Our founders understood that. It's a personal decision. But here's where the deviousness, the modern discussions with the left, this is where the lies really sneak in. We cannot have our republic function without a people that follow the teachings of Christ. I know I say this all the time, folks. I know I go over a lot of this stuff, but if we really acted like this and lived our lives like this and knew this in the country, well, I wouldn't need to do this podcast, but obviously we don't. So here we are. Coolidge knew, and this is the tricky part, right? There's a couple tricky things here. One, you can't force somebody to faith, but if we don't believe that if we don't follow Jesus Christ, the republic's gone, right? That's the first. So it's you got to make sure you understand that. I can't. This is not Islam where you walk up to somebody and if they can't quote the Quran, you behead them. It doesn't work that way. That doesn't do you any good, because then it's just a conversion based on convenience and being scared to death, right? And our founders knew that. But if you don't have a people that honestly follow Jesus Christ as the Son of God, America loses. We lose, right? But it's got to be within the people. We've got to make that choice on our own. And that's what's not happening today. We're not choosing to follow Jesus Christ. We're choosing to follow the world. And this goes back to the podcast from earlier this week on priorities. You can't claim to really have God as your number one priority and your spouse is your second, if you're giving hours and hours to whatever it is, folks, shopping, working out, watching sports, regardless of if it's on TV or if it's your kid playing on a field, hunting, golfing, whatever it is, pick whatever your poison is. If you're giving hours to that, Netflix, Hulu, social media, whatever, and you're, just barely scraping by, giving 5 minutes a day to God and to your spouse, what do you think is going to happen to our country? Just like Reagan said, strength of our country, strength is of our families. You can't have a strong family without those principles of Christ at work. Some of y'all out there are going to say, oh my gosh, that's so arrogant. You're saying that there's no strong families in countries that are not predominantly Christian. There's no strong families where they don't follow Jesus Christ. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there are no strong families where the principles of Jesus Christ are not at work. Now you can you can claim to be a Christian and not really follow Jesus Christ in your heart, but follow his teachings. And man, that makes life a lot easier. Or smoother, I should say, to a certain degree. You can be a Buddhist or a Muslim or whatever it is that you want to say and enact some of those principles of Jesus Christ in your life, and that makes your family stronger. That makes you a better man or woman. The point is, if you don't follow the teachings of Jesus Christ, family falls apart, marriages fall apart, country falls apart. And here's the other huge difference, going back to Coolidge's comment. This is not China. This is not India. This is not Pakistan. This is not Nigeria. This is not Colombia. America was specifically designed and built based on, like Washington said, it is impossible to rightly govern without God in the Bible. This country was specifically designed to run on God and Jesus Christ. It's like building a car, whatever you want, pick your fuel, diesel, gas, and then filling it up with the wrong fuel. It just starts to destroy everything, folks. And it can't last. That's the point. That's the whole thing. I feel like I could just redo this podcast about 500 times, maybe a few thousand. All right. I'm sure y'all can hear the birds in the background. I think I've kept y'all for long enough. Sure do appreciate y'all's time. I'm not sure you could tell it, but I really enjoy spending time with y'all here. I appreciate the comments. There was a comment. I'll try and do some housekeeping next episode. Comment one of y'all made this week that I thought was really good, and I'll try and come back to next time. I think the guineas are saying it's almost, I don't know, maybe they're hungry, bedtime, who knows. And I've got all this work for myself to do, so we're going to go do something, even if it's wrong. God bless y'all. God bless your families. God bless America. Remember, Patrick Henry, sphere of influence. You've got a sphere of influence, folks. Use it however you can. We'll talk to y'all again real soon. Looking forward to it.